What is up, guys, and welcome to the Meeple Minded podcast, the podcast where we talk all things tabletop gaming. My name is Jason.
And my name is James.
How are you doing this week, James?
I'm good, Jason. I'm good. How are you?
I'm not too bad, mate. Not too bad. I'm really enthusiastic today.
Excellent.
I don't know why, because I only thought about this podcast about 5 minutes ago.
Excellent.
So in true style, we are winging it to the max, because even I am unprepared today. So, yeah, there we go. I've had 2 weeks away, James, and in that 2 weeks, I've successfully done nothing. No preparation whatsoever. Great start to the year.
That's how we roll.
So much for being a bit more organised and getting things sorted. But, James, how have you been? It has been 2 weeks.
It has.
You made a mistake last week, didn't you?
Did. We decided that we were going to do every other week for a while, and then I immediately forgot and phoned you to say, hey, I'm on the bus heading over.
Which I'd had a really bad day.
Yes.
I must be honest. I had a really bad day on our usual recording day last week. And I'd not long been home. And I was feeling a bit down in the dumps. And you perked me right up there, James, because I was laughing for a good hour after that, because it was great fun. I was laughing at your expense.
You were. I'm glad that my mistake brought you a small portion of joy.
Yes. I mean, on positive notes, though, you hadn't quite got on the bus to get over it.
I hadn't.
So it's a good thing you phoned me.
Yes.
It's a good thing that I actually answer, because I quite often don't. But yeah, that was great fun. The recording last week, James, absolutely amazing. Shame it'll never hear the light of day. We'll see the light of day, more to the point. But yes, gaming-wise, James,
we have been a bit lax on the gaming.
We have. But there's been somewhat of a good reason for that. We haven't been able to game at the game club this year. In fact, this year at all so far. I mean, granted, there's only been 2.
Because it has been horrifically busy.
It has. And next week's proving to be exactly the same. We're still half a week away from our next game club, and it's already fully booked.
Yep.
This is great, but somewhat of a problem, because we are now having to turn people away, which I do not like doing. No. And more importantly, I'm not getting to game.
No.
So turning people away, bad, not good. But me not gaming,
very bad.
Very bad. Unacceptable, I would say. Because we're not even having a game club at my house this week, James.
No.
That's a whole week that I'm not gaming. I'm amazed that this world is still even on its axis. I'm amazed that the world hasn't come to an end, that the Skeletor has risen to take over the world. Which, incidentally, today is the day that Masters of the Universe came out in the UK. Have you watched it, James?
I have watched it.
Excellent. I've watched the first couple of episodes. Might also explain why I wasn't prepared for this podcast, but it's neither here nor there. What are you thinking of it, James? Without any spoilers, because I'll kill you.
I am enjoying it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Better than the last lot?
On par, I would say.
Yeah.
I personally, I think we've mentioned this a couple of times, I don't see what everyone's problem with the other series, the other 2 series are. No,
I really liked Revelations.
Yeah.
But like I said, I've only watched a couple of episodes of Revolutions. Amazing title change that one is.
Yeah.
Revelations to Revolutions. I am enjoying it, but I don't think I've enjoyed it quite as much as I did Revelations so far. I'm sure there's more to come. I know there's only 5 episodes.
Yeah, they only do it in 5s because they're like an hour long, aren't they?
See, I thought that, but these ones have only been half an hour long, which is what confused me. Because I'm sure the other ones were an hour.
I'm sure they were.
I could be wrong. Yeah, I could be wrong, but
I wasn't really paying attention to the runtime, I've got to be honest.
The 2 I've watched, the first 2, they're only half an hour long. So that's a bit concerning. They're a bit shorter. But I did notice, is it Keith? Oh, I'm forgetting his name. Is it Keith Hood or something like that? He's in it? Yeah. I recognise his voice. But yeah.
I did notice, I've not looked into it, but I did notice that Teela's voice actress has changed.
Do you know what? I had a quick look earlier. There's quite a few changes in this. And yeah, I wondered what's happened, because there's quite a bit of change there, and Teela is one of them.
Yeah, because obviously Teela was Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yes.
And it was noticed, like the first line she had, I was like, oh, that's
yeah, totally different actor, yeah. Or actress. Sorry, actress. Yeah, I just Keith David Keith David, that's who I was thinking of. He's obviously in it now, which is pretty cool. Do you know the weird thing? Of all the films that Keith David has done, the only one I recognised his voice from was Agent Cody Banks. And yeah, I couldn't believe it. But it's pretty cool that he's in it. But yeah, I wonder why they have changed some of the voice actors.
It's probably they didn't want to carry on.
See, that always concerns me when actors and actresses don't want to continue on their roles on shows. It makes me feel that maybe there's something they disagreed with on the show itself, especially when you saw all the interviews from that first series.
Yeah,
they were all like, "Yeah, this is the best thing since since the original."
I mean, like I said, I've not looked into it at all, so this is totally my opinion. Maybe she didn't want to carry on with it because, from what I understand from the people who didn't like it, that particular character, Taylor, was taking the brunt of the criticism. So
yeah, true. Maybe she just didn't want to be part of that anymore.
Yeah, which is a shame because, like I said, I don't see the problem with it.
No, and I think she did a really good job. So I really hope that that's not the reason. Because again, from what I've seen of the first 2 episodes, they're pretty good. I don't think they're as good as the last one, but that's just me. I'm hoping story develops a bit more. But yeah, I'm guessing it will. So I'm really looking forward to episodes 3, 4, and 5. Probably watch them tomorrow, I think. Maybe. Not sure yet. But yeah, so not many games, James. Not really been doing much else. So shall we jump into a topical?
Let's jump into it.
It's going to be a fairly short episode, so I want to talk about something. Let's go ahead and do it. It's been a while since we heard that little tune, James.
The topical
tune. So, James, what are we talking about today? I know you don't know, because only I know.
Only you know.
Only I am all-knowing and all-powerful. We're talking about age ratings on games today, James.
Age ratings on games?
Yes. Now, are you very opinionated about age ratings on games? What are your general thoughts around age ratings on games, and how am I going to change those thoughts?
I don't know, because I don't really, I suppose, because being the age that I am, it's one of the things, I've got to be honest, that I don't really pay that much attention to.
No, and that's understandable, because you don't really play games with generally anyone outside of our game group, which are usually about our age, maybe a tiny bit younger, maybe a tiny bit older, but no one under the age of, say, 25, I reckon.
Yeah.
So we don't, you particularly don't really need to pay much attention to age ratings on board games because, you're 35 years old. Is there going to be a game out there that's 36 out, that you won't be allowed to play?
Oh, I'd just be like, oh, no, I can't play it.
I mean, it'd be an interesting, discovery as to why 36. But I guess that's the kind of thing I want to figure out today because I'll be honest, my personal opinion is, for the most part, I see age ratings on games and I immediately think to myself, why? Why is it that age? And does it deserve to be that age? Do I think that what you're telling me is a load of horse tripe? And not looking into the details of it too much, because like I said, I came up with this about 5 minutes before we actually recorded. But there are certain things I personally think happen with regards to age ratings on games. Now, for the most part, I'd say a large percentage of games would be 14 plus, would you say?
Yeah.
That seems to be the normal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there are others, like, I'm just looking at the ones that I can see on your expansive shelf behind me, because some of them are on the box. Like, so, Inesh, for example, 14 plus.
Yep.
Wacky Racers, 14 plus, which surprises me, if I'm honest.
Yep.
Pandemic, 8 plus.
Yeah. I think off the top of my head, because I'm obviously faced away from the games behind me, I think there's some 10 pluses on there. I've seen a couple of 8s. I know there's a couple of 6 pluses on there. So there is evidently a wide range of ages that can be put onto board games. And we assume that those ages that are printed on the box is what the publisher recommends is the youngest person that plays that game.
Yeah.
However, you highlighted one of the ones that I was going to bring up, James, which was Wacky Races, the board game. Call me or not. Came out a few years ago, 14 plus. I, for the life of me, can't figure out the reason why. Because there's no small parts in there. The game is very, very lightweight. My son has been playing that since he was 6 and having no problems. So, I had to have a very quick little look, and it appears that I think I may have stumbled upon the main answer, and that is that anything, and this is especially in the UK and the US, anything under the age of 14 is subject to extra licensing and extra safety checks, which obviously take more time and cost a hell of a lot of money. Now, my assumption is that for the most part, publishers either don't want to pay that extra amount, or maybe they can't afford to pay that extra amount, which I can kind of understand. What do you think?
I would agree with that statement if that's the primary reason. If 14 is the cutoff point for bringing in all those extra checks, because I was about to say, having not looked into any of this at all, it's just like, well, the lower end is going to be for small components. There will be a legal thing there, small components and things like that, but then they tend to be quite low.
Yeah. And I think the main reason is because when you drop below that 14 plus, it's then immediately hitting the market as a toy.
Yeah.
So obviously, even if, say it's a 12-year-old, but they're still classed as children, so they're kind of doing those extra safety checks to make sure that they are safe for children's use. So I can understand why it costs extra to do it. I can understand why there's extra safety precautions. The problem is, when it comes to board games, I don't really think that it's necessary, so to speak, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
See, I will disagree with you on that, because the things they'll be checking for aren't things that you might immediately think of. It'll be down to we think of like meeples. Most of them are painted.
Yep.
Cool. You need to test the paint. Make sure it's not toxic.
Yep.
That requires a lab.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's fair comment. It is fair comment.
It's all those kind of things. It's like, it's not just the things like the things you would immediately go for, like you said, small components. It's like, what's it made of?
Yeah.
Is there a risk there? All of these kind of things where you effectively have to lab test them.
Yeah.
Labs are expensive.
I mean, I would assume that they do something similar to that, really, with regards to the product as a whole anyway, because obviously, especially in the UK, I know that we obviously have a substantial amount of laws. You're not allowed to use lead-based paint. Mm-hmm. So obviously, if they're going to be testing, I assume they test for things like that when it comes into the country. I could be wrong. I don't know that for certain, but that's my assumption.
I don't know if they do. I don't know if it's a case of that's the law and it's applied retroactively, as in if something is discovered, then we go back and hit you with it. I don't know if they randomly test products like that just to go, are you compliant? They might do, they might not. I don't know.
No. Which I guess is one of the downsides to not actually preparing fully. But, overall, we're not going deep into that. But I actually think that there is another reason, James. That, I think, is the key reason that games will come with a higher age rating than they seemingly need. But I think there is actually another reason why publishers may have a slightly higher age rating. And I think it actually boils down to not so much the theme of the game or the content of the game, but the game itself. Are they using the age rating to also say that the complexity of this game is suitable for someone of this age and upwards, assuming the average age of people that might want to play the game? Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, well, this is quite a heavyweight game, so we're going to say, really, you need to be over 16 because anyone under 16 might not be able to get it. Do you think that might be something they use it for?
I mean, I would have thought so to a point, because, the age rating, especially if you're buying for a young adult, effectively, it's like, are they going to be able to grasp the game?
Yeah. And see, you actually kind of hit a nail on the head, really, that was on my mind when I thought about this. Buying a game for someone, buying the game for a young adult. Now, let's say Jimmy, 13-year-old, is a modern board gamer. He's been a modern board gamer since he was 8 years old. He loves his games. He's got loads of them. Someone's buying him a game for his birthday, his Christmas, or whatever, but they won't buy him a game that's, say, listed 14 because it says 14. And they're doing the right thing. They're sticking to the law. It says 14 plus. They've always got to be 14. He could be missing out on a really good game.
He could be
that
missing.
has nothing in it that affects his age at all.
I mean, let's be completely honest though, because board game ratings, age ratings, they're not like video game and movie ratings where it's a legal requirement. It is a recommended age. Yeah. It's not a case of, I can't buy this because it will have content that's not suitable. It's a complex. I always picture it as a complexity guide. It's like, well,
see, you recommend it, or you view it as a complexity guide, as do I. But let's say the person buying the game isn't a gamer. They won't know that. They'll just see the age. And yeah, arguably that now means that poor player, it could be missing out on a really, really good game. You know, I'm not sure what the answer to it could be in that instance. Is it, because when you look at movie ratings, as you said, you get the age, but then you get a quick little description underneath. It's like, why? Why is it this age?
Yeah.
If it's an 18 due to violence, sexual content, drug usage, whatever. And it kind of breaks all that down. I think the only one it doesn't is the parental guidance one, which is literally just parental guidance is advised.
Yeah.
Maybe board games should just be PG, Is that the answer, James?
I mean, most of them, because like I said, they're not categorized like films and video games are, which, it's also throwing out there that films and video games are those are legal requirements.
Yeah.
Well, in the UK, they are anyway, to have those breakdowns and the age. And that age rating comes from a board that has to watch the film and assign the film or game that rating.
Yeah.
This is just the publishers just saying, hey, we're targeting at this age range.
Yeah. So do you think there would ever be like a board of, people that do actually do this kind of stuff for games as well, or do you think that
I do
not that much of a market?
I would like to think that some of that age rating on board games comes from playtesting.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, we found that people under this age struggled more, which is why we've put the age recommendation on it.
Yeah. So the confusing part of this for, I guess, non-gamers as well, looking into the hobby, the confusing part that I see is you will get games that are 18 plus, and they tend to be not safe for work editions of games and the such. Now, those ones, for the most part, are done correctly. They have an 18 rating on them because they contain material that could be I'm using air quotes here, but could be damaging to anyone under the age of 18.
Yeah.
So in that instance, those age ratings are valid. And yet we've just sat here for nearly 10 minutes arguing that the age ratings on games, for the most part, are cock and bull.
Yeah. But that 99% of them are. It's like 18 plus is a little different. And again, in the UK, I believe that is a legal requirement if your game contains certain themes.
Yeah.
They're governed by the same principles, and you can get in a lot of trouble if you put that game out for sale without specifically saying, hey, this is an adults-based game.
Yeah. So for you, James, when you look at age ratings on games, I know you say you don't, but if you were looking at age ratings on games, are there any that would stand out to you that would actually put you off playing a game, for example?
I mean, if it's like, again, I can normally just tell by looking at the game, but for me personally, it would be the ones that are obviously aimed at children.
Yes.
Straight away. But I don't need a sticker on the box to tell me that. It's like, I can usually tell just by looking at it, like, that's not really going to be my kind of game.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally understand that. And, a game that I know we've both played, in fact, we've played this without my child present, would be Core Quest.
Yes.
We quite enjoy the lighter weight version of Core Quest. I mean, granted, it's not a game we're playing all the time, but sometimes you just want that dirt simple game. And obviously we have to play these things to talk about them as well. So, but that's age 6.
Yeah.
And it doesn't put me off the game. It's I try and look past the age rating because...
Yeah. I mean, if I'm completely honest, like I said, we discovered that, or I discovered that game because of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was in a game shop looking to buy a game, I would have probably passed over it because I'm looking at it going, nah, it's a kid's game.
Yeah. And I would agree. Or, at least a family weight game, and you don't have a young family. So it would be understandable that you would pass over it. Now, me personally, apart from the obvious of the really young kids games, I don't look at them because my son is now over 10. He's nearly 11. I don't need to be looking at games that are, 3, 4, 5, 6, that sort of age range. But I find when I look at a game and I see 18 plus on it, it's immediately a bit of a turn off for me, because it usually means, as we said, not safe for work, which usually means it's unnecessarily trying to be offensive.
Yep.
And basically be Cards Against Humanity when it doesn't need to be. The whole not safe for work thing, I've tired of it very, very quickly. I used to love playing things like Joking Hazard, Trial by Trolley. They're all gone. I've sold them all. I'm just not interested in them anymore, because really, it's not my type of game.
No, the party games.
Yeah, and those party games are the ones that tend to hold that 18 plus. So that is something that immediately puts me on defense of, is this a party game? So that to me, that's me taking note of an age rating. So is it also used to tell you the type of game that it is? Or, is that us reading too much into it?
I would say the 18 plus, yes, it's probably a party game.
Yep.
Like, I don't think I've encountered, I'm still relatively new to this hobby, but I don't think I've encountered any other kind of game that has a rating that high.
I think, I don't know for certain, but I think Kingdom Death Monster did. However, that has very explicit material and art images in it, so it's valid for that. However, you can play the game without that stuff.
Yeah.
So you could play it at lower age, but the fact of the matter is it comes in the box.
Yeah.
They have to provide that rating.
Again, for valid reasons.
Yeah.
So, that's one example.
Yeah.
Of a game that's not a party game.
It's the only one that sticks in my mind as being that age rating. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you've got to be trying pretty hard to get a rating that high. Like, as I've spoken about many times, like, I came into this hobby through Warhammer.
Yep.
And some of the background fluff for that is extremely violent.
Yep.
And if you
quite sexually risque at some points.
In some of them, it's towing the line.
Yeah.
And I don't that's got an age rating of what?
I think a lot of the stuff is like 16, but ultimately the boxes that you buy, the models, they're 14.
Yeah. And let's be honest, a lot of people are a lot younger when they get into that hobby.
Yeah. And they actively encourage it.
Because it's only an advisory.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think really that's the key takeaway, isn't it? Is age ratings on tabletop games as a whole.
You could do a whole episode, a whole topical, and it's not just limited to board games on what's acceptable and what constitutes an age rating, because a lot of people have pointed this out, and I completely agree with them that we seem to have a lot more tolerance for gratuitous violence than we do other subjects, which is a little bit weird in my mind.
Yeah. Actually, you've sort of slid on into my next thought process here, James, was I see some games that have reasonable age ratings. They're 14 plus, for example. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to say this particular game is 10 plus. Now, there are quite a few games within the board game industry that have stirred up substantial controversy at some point or another due to their theme, and they tend to be historical games. I'm sure you can probably figure out, but certain games have more than just a nod towards slavery.
Yep.
And such disgusting topics like that. Now, me personally, I don't mind them being in games because it's a game. If they're glorifying it, that's a different kettle of worms. But really, it's a game. I tend to look past it. Could or should that be something that is affected within the age rating? Because I do think that especially games that maybe lean into it just a bit more than the others, maybe they should.
Yeah.
I know, it's hard for me to try and think of them off the top of my head now, to be honest. But I sort of think of some of the more historical ones that are based in like Spain and stuff like that. Farming.
Yeah.
A lot of those things were done by slaves.
Yeah.
And there's some games that have, whether they've done it deliberately or mistakenly, they've put certain colour meeples.
Yeah.
For certain tasks. Is that that's not right.
No. It's whether it was intentional or not. Someone at some point in the development phase should have gone,
maybe not. Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah. But for me, or for you, James, your opinion on that, should that really be reflected in age?
I think it should. And like you say, especially the historical based ones, but the things that are based in this actually happened. Because, as you stated right there, slavery is perhaps not a problem in games, so to speak. Like, again, Warhammer, a lot. The entire human race is effectively enslaved to the throne.
Yes.
We're property.
Yeah.
Hell, they grind people down and feed them to people. But that's completely over the top dystopian sci-fi.
Yeah.
The same in roleplay. There's a lot of fantasy genres have had slavery included into them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they're fantasy races, it's not linked to a historical event that actually happened.
Yeah. Well, what about things like racism and stuff within games? I mean, luckily, touch wood, it's not something that we see often or at all.
I mean, but, do we though? In the fact, there's traditionally in fantasy genres, elves and dwarves absolutely despise each other.
True. It's very true. Yeah. Yeah. I suppose that is a form of fantasy racism. Of course. Yeah.
But this is it's their fictional races, fictional characters. They don't exist in real life.
Yeah. I guess that's not quite as touchy subject or risque as basing it on something in real life.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to keep coming back to it. Warhammer. The humans in Warhammer are extremely xenophobic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Most of the races are.
Yeah.
To one degree or another. It's like a lot of these themes are uncomfortable, but because it's fiction,
yep,
it's acceptable.
So the question I have for you, James, because you're obviously using it as a lot of your examples here, and it's a really good example to give. Do you think that Games Workshop products, stories, that kind of stuff is actually age rated correctly?
See, I've always had this fight with it because I got into Warhammer at quite a young age. It was about 12, 13 when I first got interested in it, and it is the fantasy side of it, I suppose, isn't as hardcore as the sci-fi one. Shall I say?
Certain parts of it maybe,
you get a little bit.
Let's be honest, Slaanesh is in both.
Slaanesh is in both, but I still don't think Slaanesh goes in as hard in the fantasy setting as
I think I would agree. Yeah,
as the 40k setting, because the fantasy setting is a rip-off of Tolkien.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely not the case at all, James. I think you're totally wrong, but 100% right.
As most fantasy genres are.
Yes.
But it it obeys the same kind of rules that Lord of the Rings does and how far it goes, whereas the sci-fi element of Games Workshop definitely is its own thing. It borrows from a lot of franchise, but the core of it is an original property.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot more freedom, and they always seem to be, we've written this, but we want to encourage all ages to play our game.
Yeah.
Now, it should be said, it's not a requirement to read the background lore to play the game.
Yeah. But for the most part, a lot of it will always be included within the, let's say, the codexes or warbands or whatever the...
Yeah.
War scrolls, whatever they call them.
I have noticed, though, that a lot of the more quote-unquote hardcore stuff tends to come from the Black Library novels.
Yeah, the actual storybooks, as opposed to the codexes and the basic background fluff.
But like I said, that's the more risque stuff. I mean, they're still chock full of gratuitous violence.
Yeah. I mean,
like completely.
It's a game about fighting.
Yeah, but completely over the top.
Yeah.
Stuff. And I think There is a psychological element of it that if it is completely over the top, it is a little bit because it's it's obviously fiction because this stuff just doesn't happen in real life, sort of thing. It's not striking a nerve with anyone like that's a little too close to home, sort of thing.
Yeah,
because it is so over the top.
Yeah. No, I think I think you are spot on, really.
But it's a lot of these sort of controversial topics. They are there and always have been in both sci-fi and fantasy fiction. Like we've said, there's always depictions of slavery. There's depictions of racism.
Yep. I mean, I even sort of think back to like Hero Quest that we all played as kids. It's like there was quite a bit of, although you didn't have words depicting said scenes. Yeah. Some of the artwork, as glorious as it is, I look back at it now and I'm just sort of like, that's clearly an enslaved female.
Yep.
In chains. Yep. Scantily clad.
Yep.
Because it's great art and it's great storytelling, but
they're always there, these risque topics.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, really, when I think about it, is do I genuinely think the age rating on games is, I won't say the word necessary because law states that these things are necessary, but do I really pay that much attention to it? No, I don't think I do. Do I think anyone pays that much attention to it? Not particularly. I do think that you'll always get the relatives that are buying a present for you that don't know what they're talking about. They'll see an age on it and go, oh, hang on a minute, little Jimmy is only 10. This says 14. Yeah. There's clearly something in here that he shouldn't see. So I think in that instance, it is definitely changing stuff.
Even the theme of the game, like I can think of an example here because it's just crossed my mind because it's a 14 plus, would be Distilled.
Yeah. Yep.
Now there's nothing wrong with that game. There's no element of it, but it is a game about distilling alcohol.
Yes.
So anyone, I mean, it is rated 14.
Yeah. I think we agreed that it should be something like 12.
It should be 12 in case of mechanics. But again, a 12-year-old is going to have no interest in the theme of that game. It's, it's about distilling whiskey and things like that. Something that they have no knowledge of. Yeah. That, the theme is just not going to talk to them, and they're probably going to be bored playing it.
Yeah. So in that instance, as you used Distilled as an example, James, do you think that was a case of they actually thought that 14 plus was really where they should be going for, or do you think that was a case of people could be younger than this and play it, but we don't think it's worth paying the extra to have all those extra checks and all of that just to be able to put it down by an extra 2 years?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like the game is capable of being played by people far younger than 14, but then you're not going to have any interest in the theme whatsoever.
Yeah. So it's kind of been used as more of a, rather than this game has got themes that are only suitable for said age, it's more been printed on the box to say this is where we think you should be game mechanic wise and theme wise.
Yeah.
Okay. I think for the most part, I think that's where most games will go. As always, I find Board Game Geek is the, as always, go-to for all board gamers because you have the section at the top that will always list the official age range of a game, but then you also have the community rating, which is more often than not closer to the mark where I think the game actually sits. Like, for example, Distilled sits at 12. Ironically, it's exactly what we said it should be, but by doing that, they have not had to pay all of that money or had all those extra checks to be able to have that lower range on there. So all board gamers, let's be honest, most board gamers know about Board Game Geek. They'll know to check it on places like that. They'll get to see, okay, my son can play this with me or my daughter can play this with me. So do they need to really worry about the age range that they put on a box, James?
Well, I think we've established the answer to that one is yes, because it's a legal requirement.
But excluding the legal requirements and the ramifications of said legal requirements.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the primary reason for putting it on there, then no.
Yeah. I think it's kind of one of those that doesn't really need to be there other than the legality issues of it. But if they are to stay on there, James, do you think that it needs a bit more information as to why it's that age?
Yes. Like the perfect example you gave, and I think, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but yeah, like the movie ratings that we have when you buy a DVD
Yep.
Where it will give you the actual age and a number, and then underneath you get a little 4 or 5 line box that tells you why it's got that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it could, if it is, a 14 plus for mechanical reasons, mechanisms in the games, tell us that's why it's 14 plus. Whereas, I mean, I don't know where they would stand on the legality of putting it's 14 plus because we didn't want to pay we didn't want to pay for the tests. I don't know where they would stand on that, or how they would get around that. But I just think a little bit of information to say why would be great to see. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Much the same as everything.
Yeah. Thing is, though, it's like I was thinking about this when we were talking about it in relation to like films and games. It's like the problem also is that attitudes change over time.
Yeah.
Like even in our lifetime, it's like I can think of films like what was the one I was thinking of the other day? I think it was Terminator. That was an 18 when it was first released.
Yeah,
I think
it's like a 12
I think
now.
it's a 12 now.
Because we're more accustomed to
it's like
uncounted amounts of violence.
There was a time when even a minor swear word would get a film rated like 15.
I mean, do you know what? I know I don't really look into the medium anymore, but I used to remember when you used to go to like HMV or a music store, walking along the CDs and seeing nothing but massive parental advisory stickers over loads of albums. It's like, I just don't see that anymore.
No.
Is it even a thing? Do you still have to declare that?
I think they still put it on there just so that's more a case of they can't sue us.
Yeah.
But it's the point is with that is like I can remember where a minor swear word would have got a film of 15.
Yeah.
And now you get a PG film.
Yeah.
And it's got minor swear words in it.
I think the only films that just won't have anything in it are the U's.
I don't even think U exists anymore.
Do you know what? I don't know. Again, when it comes to film ratings, unless I'm going to the cinema with my son, I just don't look.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I mean, again, because like the PG rating, I know that one came about. It's just because it's still a kid's film.
Yeah.
But certain things in it might cause them to have nightmares. So we advise the parent watches it first.
Do you know what? I know we're wrapping up and we're starting to ramble a bit, but with regards to movies, but when it comes to the age ratings on movies, they just went crazy. And this is for a very UK thing, because we have U, which is anybody can watch it. PG, which is parental guidance. We advise the parents see it first. And then we used to have 12, 15, 18. It's now 12A, which is basically PG.
Yeah.
Because there's very little difference. I believe you have to have a parent with you to watch a 12A, but that entitles you to watch anything up to a 15.
Yep.
So that if it's what would be a 14 rated movie, you could still see it, even at the age of 6.
Yep.
As long as you had a parent with you. Makes no sense. I don't want to see that kind of stuff in board games, I must be honest. But age ratings, James. I think we should wrap up.
I think we should.
What's your final thoughts on age ratings?
I mean, largely that I ignore them.
Yep.
Because I just don't see the need in them. But, as we've touched on, they are a legal requirement.
Yep.
I would say they're more applicable for people to pay attention to, as we've highlighted, if they are actually below 14.
Yep.
Because it means they've paid paid for the check.
Yep.
To get it there. So that range is probably a little bit more accurate as to the age range the game is targeted at.
Yeah, I do see more select ages once it goes below the 14.
Yeah.
Because then they are basically like, we need to pinpoint exactly where we need to.
Well, like Starship Captain's 12, Meeple Land 10.
Yeah.
I've already said Pandemic 8. Those are probably actually a bit more accurate. But whereas if it says 14 plus, it's like, you didn't want to pay for the check.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think people should look at it or not bother?
So I think I've just summed it up there. I think if it's actually, with that piece of information, if it's below 14, probably yes, because it's probably a little bit more accurate. If it's 14 plus, probably not, because it just probably means that it is absolutely fine for a 12 or a 10-year-old to play. They just didn't want to do the relevant.
14 plus, judge it for yourself.
Yeah.
Anything below 14 plus, take note. It's probably pretty accurate. 18 plus, don't play it.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty good. In fact, we'll replace the age range with those specific things.
There you go. The
official Meeple Minded age rating is do away with numbers replace them with opinions. Once again, James, our topical discussion has been totally worthless and will not change the industry in any way, shape or form, but hell, I've enjoyed talking about it because it's another thing off of my chest. Now, I've got to go away, James, because I talked to you a bit last night because I've been hush-hush designing a game.
You have.
Again.
Yep.
It's probably going to go as far as the last one that I decided to.
Newsflash, people, it will be rated 14 plus because Jason's skint and can't afford to pay for the age check.
Very, very true indeed. I might even make it an 18 just to put people off. It'll have no age-restricted stuff in it whatsoever, but I'll make it an 18 just because I can. But yes, it has been good seeing you again, James. It feels like an age since I've seen you. A full 2 weeks.
I know, and I'll have to remember that we are not recording next week.
You will have to remember that. Although I could do with another laugh, so I won't remind you. I think it's time to go because I need a drink and I want to go to sleep. So, till next time, I have been Jason.
And I've been James.
And you have been listening to the Meeple Minded podcast. Join us next time for more tabletop gaming goodness. Ta-ta and goodbye.